This is the east end of the Fulton Avenue line and Lincoln Avenue loop, May of 1971. This is August of 71, the east end of the 12th Street Roosevelt Road line. John and I went out to photograph some of the line. This bus is turning off of Roosevelt into Wabash. And then he's going to turn in the alley here to enter the loop. This bus is on 12th Street and he's turning into Wabash. This bus is emerging from the alley and back onto 12th Street to head west, having completed his loop. Now we move to the west end of the same line. This bus is emerging from the loop at Monitor Avenue to head east. Bus is turning in to complete their loop. Bus coming out of the loop onto 12th Street and heading east. November of 1971, John and I returned to 12th Street. Here we are at the east end once again. Bus turning from 12th Street into Wabash. Entering the alley. And emerging back onto 12th Street to head west. Another bus turning into Wabash. Into the alley. Passing under the CTA north-south elevated line here, Roosevelt Road, and over the bridge over the south branch of the Chicago River and the railroad yards. And here the bus is entering the truck route at Laughlin Street on Roosevelt Road. Under the CTA Douglas line and under the Penn Central and B&O at Rockwell Street. Under the Belt Railway at Kenton Avenue. And at the west end of the line, entering the loop at Monitor. Coming out of the loop at Monitor to head east again. This is in January of 1972. John and Barb and I headed out to the south end of the Pulaski line, 31st and Kaminsky. We thought we were going to get some snow pictures, but by the time we got there, the snow had stopped. Bus coming from Pulaski turning into 31st Street. And a bus turning from 31st Street into Pulaski. This is on Central Avenue in Goodman. On an afternoon in August of 1972, my son John and I went up here to photograph the buses returning to Forest Glen Yard after the evening rush hour. I believe Central Avenue was strictly a non-revenue route at this time, only used for ferrying the buses to and from Forest Glen Yard. This is on Central at Montrose, Dig that Arco sign on the left. Those buses are on Montrose crossing the Central Avenue line. And this bus is turning into Central to head for Forest Glen Yard. This bus is on Irving Park. He's calling it a day 2 and heading for Forest Glen. And another. Not sure where this twilight shot is. Possibly in Montrose. See that Arco sign on the... Now we're aboard a fan trip sponsored by the Omnibus Society of America. John and I are aboard here in December of 1972. We covered the Belmont Avenue line. This is Belmont and Halsted. John's out there with his camera again. We're Ying in someplace here, I don't recall where. Dig those bell bottoms. And the west end of the line, Cumberland Avenue loop.
This is Cicero Avenue, looking north while passing the North Avenue bus barn. January of 1973. Pulaski Road on that same day, passing beneath the former Milwaukee Road tracks near Belmont Avenue. Notice the overhead warning lights as Pulaski Road passes under the Burlington near 24th Street. North Avenue barn, February of 1973. It must have taken some skill for a driver to guide his bus beneath all this complicated overhead wire without having dewirements. Buses stored at the CTA's South shops. The North Branch of the Chicago River being crossed by the Pulaski Road line. Here are some night views taken in February of 1973. North Avenue in Pulaski. This is 31st and Kaminsky, the south end of CTA's Pulaski trolleybus route. It is March 24th, 1973, and we were told this was the final day of revenue service for trolleybuses operating on Chicago's two remaining lines, Pulaski and Cicero Avenue. This is at North Avenue Barn. The next few minutes show random scenes taken on the two remaining routes, Pulaski and Cicero Avenue, March 24th, 1973. A week after the CTA trolleybus operations ended, the Omnibus Society of America sponsored 2 fan trips on the system. What follows is the day trip of April 1st, 1973. The night trip video of stills is also on this YouTube channel. Bus numbers 9553 and 9631 were used on both trips. Some shoes needed to be replaced en route. Sections of the overhead wire had been removed under viaducts, making it necessary for the bus to coast under these sections. Notice the trolley poles being tended during this time. Out-of-service trolleybuses were stored at the South Shops. April 7, 1973. Other out-of-service trolleybuses were stored in the median of the Stevenson Expressway, I-55, near Central Avenue. We were told that these buses in the N&W's Landers Yard were awaiting shipment to Mexico. The two fan trip buses went to the Illinois Railway Museum in Union, Illinois, where we saw them on July 14, 1974.